We've been looking at whether Nigeria has been discriminating against its religious minorities. Could the same be happening in Pakistan? More than 90% of the country is Muslim. But every year, thousands of Hindu and Christian girls are kidnapped, forced to marry, and then convert to Islam. This year, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan ordered an investigation into the case of two girls who were abducted and forced to become Muslim. But activists say that's not enough. Pakistan has no law banning forced conversions, and the number of victims has spiked in recent years. So is it time the government took more serious action? Well, let's go to Lahore, where I'm joined by Mehdi Hasan. He's the chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and Fauzia Viqar, who was the chairwoman of the Punjab Commission on the Status of Women. Good to have you both on the program. Mehdi Hasan, how big is this problem of young Hindu and Christian girls being forced to convert?
Well, the problem in Pakistan is that this issue concerns directly with the democratic rights of the people. And in Pakistan, democracy is not possible because Pakistan is a religious state. Constitutionally, Pakistan is a religious state, and a religious state and democratic state, these are two different things. This is my personal opinion. This is not the policy of the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. But I believe that a religious state can never be a democratic state. In Pakistan, the religious minority, they are facing many problems because of the influence of the religious might in Pakistan. The religious might, which is in minority but is influential in Pakistan, and the government, whenever an issue comes which is concerning religious feelings and religious matters, the decision of every government, not only this present government, but in the past also, the decision is always apologetic, and those decisions are not taken. They are not possible, which are required at the moment. So Pakistan is lacking in the democratic rights of the religious minorities.
So Fauzia, when it comes
to the case
sir,
of these,
okay, sorry to interrupt you, sir, because I want to get Fauzia's opinion here before I come back to you. If what Mehdi is saying is the reality on the ground, is it going to be impossible to do anything about this because, as he says, the religious right and that minority view, which is extremely influential, is always going to supersede the democratic rights and values and democratic responsibilities that come with the nation?
yes.
Well, I'm just going to tie Dr. Mehdi Hasan's discussion with the whole issue of forced conversion as we had originally talked about. And I just want to say that this issue is more complex than meets the eye, and it affects women differently than men. Because if you look at the issue of forced conversion, women are predominantly the victims of forced conversions and then subsequently forced marriages also. It is absolutely related to democratic rights, but it is also related to discrimination based on class and gender. Even though our constitution gives rights to the religious minorities under Article 2A and Article 36, it is actually not practiced, especially for women, because if you look at how women are discriminated to begin with, you are automatically subjecting women to becoming more susceptible to forced conversions. They are poorer, their identity documents are not prepared, and subsequently if they report any form of coercion to state authorities, usually their complaints are disregarded. So I would say that it's important to look at how the issue impacts women among the religious communities disproportionately as compared to men, and relate it back to the issue of democratic rights of citizens.
Fauzia, when we look at the power dynamics, we see that when we look at each issue case by case, there's usually no help from the police, no recourse from the courts. With all of that in mind, with it seemingly being systemic, when the Prime Minister says he wants to tackle this issue and wants to do something about it, how does he then?
Well, like I said earlier, a very simplistic view of the whole issue of forced conversions is taking place. Because if the Prime Minister and the state institutions want to do something about it, they'll have to start to begin with at the time of the birth of a child, you know. Because if you look at the numbers, you'll see that the birth registration of girls is disproportionately lower than that of the boys. Similarly, if you go on to see the identity registration of the girls and boys, you will see that there is a disparity, considerable disparity. As a matter of fact, 10.2 million less identity registrations of the girls than they are of the boys. And then another factor that has to be taken into view is that there is a discrimination even in the age of marriage between girls and boys. So the way the age of majority and minority is taken, that varies. You know, the minimum age of marriage in Punjab, for instance, for a girl is 16, for a boy it is 18. Hence, more and more difficult to prove whether the issue of forced marriage is taking place or not.
Right.
The government wants to perhaps tackle it towards the end of it all, whereby any issue of conversion would be dealt with severely by the state authorities. But what about all the dynamics that go into it much beforehand?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
How are you going to prove that there was?
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Okay. So this is interesting, right? So I want to ask Mehdi Hasan, how do you actually draw that line, and is it clear cut? So you might have, for example, a girl who comes from a very poor Christian family, who through a combination of aspiration, maybe coercion, maybe a mix of other things, ends up marrying a Muslim boy who has a higher standing in society. Who gets to decide whether this was an enforced marriage or not?
Well, as far as the case of these two Hindu girls converted to Islam and forced marriages because their family members had filed an application in the police station that these two girls were abducted and forced to marry two Muslim persons who were already married and who had children. One of them had 4 children and the other had 3 children. And their marriage was without the consent of the family of the girls. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan conducted an investigation and found that many things are to be answered by the Supreme Court of, by the High Court of Islamabad. I had asked the Islamabad High Court to find out that what is the procedure of finding such volunteers who offer to marry such girls who are forced to convert to Islam, the Hindu girls or Christian girls or any other religious minorities, and who is responsible for issuing a certificate to the families of the converted girls. And number 2, while only girls are converted to Islam, why not boys who should convert to Islam and marry Muslim girls? These are the questions which has not been answered by any investigating team. So this is very important, and this shows that there is a discrimination and the religious might is asserting its policy of Islamic extremism.
Understood. Fauzia?
Yes.
Yes. My view on this? Yes. Again, I'd say this issue ties back to the whole issue of protection of the religious minorities of Pakistan. You know, we started off in 1947 when Pakistan was made. We started off with a far larger number of religious minorities. Today we are left with far less, especially when it comes to the Hindu community. There's been almost at one point a mass exodus of the Hindu community because of the coercion, because of the persecution that they felt. Now we are standing at about 4% Hindu community only, which is a much, much lower number than we started off with. So we have to protect our minorities, you know, whether it is a man or a woman, we have to protect our minorities. We have to ensure that their socioeconomic empowerment happens. There are efforts to promote their socioeconomic empowerments. And like Dr. Mehdi Hasan was saying, the power of the religious institutions, that has to be regulated so that there isn't an organized effort to convert people. In the example that was recently cited of the two sisters who were abducted, we saw that there was great efficiency in which the girls disappeared from the home, they were taken to a religious seminary, their conversion was formalized, and in no time they were married off. So there was institutional support to that. And when the parents went to the police was not as supportive. It is a good thing that the Islamabad High Court took the issue very seriously. But when they asked the question from the girls, you know, the question, as was said earlier, wasn't about, it was asked about whether they were forcibly converted. How the question of coercion is defined is what we are talking about.
Right.
Are they living in poorer circumstances? You know, is the luring of better future, I guess, get better living conditions, is that also a part of the whole systemic conversion that we are talking about?
Yeah, these are big questions and beyond the remit of a 10-minute discussion, and I think we need to delve into this deeper and wider. I'd love to invite you both back onto the program in the not too distant future. For the moment, I have to move on. But I'm very grateful that you decided to talk to us. Mehdi Hasan and Fauzia Viqar, thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.